You know how technology is. Dr. Russell, you hearing me, sir? Good morning, Dr. Russell.
Hi, good morning, good morning.
Yes, man. You know how technology is. That's how it is. Happy you could join us once again this morning, sir. How you do? Well, go on.
Diana, brother, we're good. Doing very well. Not even technology can stop with.
That's that is it. That is it. Dr. Russell, we just want to dive right into the conversation because you know time is of the essence. But you're in Southeast St. Anne, sir, and for those persons in Jamaica who are not so familiar with Southeast St. Anne, can you just share with them the divisions that make up Southeast St. Andrew, sir? Go ahead. Southeast St. Anne, please.
Wow. Yeah, sure. And morning, everybody. Good to see everybody online. And Southeast St. Anne, the heart, we like to think of it as the heart of the People's National Party, and probably even go further to say the heart of our democracy. So Southeast is made up of 4 divisions. We have the Monique division, which includes places like Monique, the town, but also Friendship, Lincoln, Blackstonedge, Clapham, Walkerswood, all of those areas as part of Monique division. And then Claremont division, which includes the town of Claremont, but also places going down to Higgintown, Coulthard, Irons Mountain, and everywhere in between, Golden Grove as well. And then we also have Bensonton division. Bensonton division comprises Bensonton, Fort George, goes all the way back to the Clarendon border, Matney, Pedro River, which is where I am from, Alderton, and then all the way up to 9 miles, 8 mile, 9 mile, Fullertown, in that area. And then the 4th division is Beechertown, and Beechertown includes Beechertown, the community, Hindstown, Parrytown, Mile End, a part of Exchange, and so on. So the largest, geographically, Southeast St. Anne is the largest constituency in the country. So with that comes, all of the challenges that you can imagine. But we are the heartbeat. We've never been lost in a competitive election to the opposition. So we are the bastion constituency of the People's National Party.
Indeed, and we'll certainly not give it up. And it's very interesting how, you're from the Pedro River area and you just name not only the constituency, but the little districts that within each division. I wonder if your opponent can do the same. Yes, we'll wait. Dr. Russell, we specifically bring you on this morning to speak to Jamaica, to speak to the youths in particularly on education, because the People's National Party have so many plans where education is concerned. And trust me, this current administration is not doing so well when it comes on to education. Education is on the back burner when it comes on to this JLP administration. And we are tired of seeing persons asking, what are the plans, especially when it comes on to education? We have the plans, they are there on social media, but who better to tell the people of Jamaica than Dr. Kenneth Russell? So in terms of education, Dr. Russell, we know the facts. We know about 30% of students leaving primary schools cannot read. Over 50% of them can't spell and do basic arithmetic. What are your plans going forward when the People's National Party forms government to address this issue in early childhood education?
All right. But first, let me get myself out of trouble, because you start name places and then you start forgetting places. And so, look, because when I'm hearing, I didn't say Newhall, I didn't say Orange Park, I didn't say Steerfield, I didn't say Alderton, I didn't say
Yes.
York Castle, I didn't say York. All
True,
right,
true,
so you get the
true.
picture.
Yes, man.
On education, as is the case, it seems for just about everything in this administration, they have failed. They have failed, and I don't even think it's on any of the burners. The things that seem to get attention are the things that we call them out on, and education is no exception. Now, you're right, and if anybody who saw the Gleaner this morning would have seen the article about one school where 70% of the students they receive, this is a high school, 70% of the students are unable to read or only reading at a grade 3 level. High school is grade 7. So that is the epitome of what is going on in our education system. Yes, we have a lot of excellent schools, we have a lot of excellent students, but what we have is a system that is not serving the majority of our children. And what do I mean by that? It is at the level of ability to read, ability to reason, but it's also as you go through the system, because Dre, it does not get better. If you're failing at grade 3, your chances of succeeding later in your education cycle diminish. And if you don't get special support, remedial support, you are not going to achieve your full potential. So for us, we are clear that we need an education system that is fair to all, that provides our people with the opportunity to gain the skills to address the opportunities or to take advantage of the opportunities and the challenges which is part of a 21st century world. So yes, high priority for the PNP is on starting early, making sure children have a solid foundation, and some of this goes back to birth and the early care. But once you come into the education system, we're putting really strong focus on early childhood, and that includes the initial years of primary. So what we want and what we intend to do is to ensure that our children are ready for school. So you're ready for grade 1, meaning you're first what support is required, right? And then once you're in the primary system, there are some basic things which we want to focus on. We want to make sure children are able to, that the curriculum rather is focused on literacy and numeracy. So there are a lot of other things that are in the curriculum, but the emphasis for us will be on those two areas, literacy, numeracy, and making sure we build those foundational skills so that we don't have children getting to grade 7 who are not reading at grade 3 level. So when we get that right, the other aspect of it is to ensure that if you're not reading by grade 3, if you're not reading at your grade level by grade 3, then automatic promotion, which is the practice now, automatic promotion meaning you finish the grade, so you move on to the next grade. You finish one grade, you move on to the next one. We want that to be we want promotion to the next grade to be based on your achievement at the grade level. So if you are not achieving at grade 3, then you should not move on to grade 4, right? And so we have to invest then in the capacity of the teachers, in the assessments that we have in the system, because we don't want children to get to grade 6 and then we're trying to figure out what to do with them. We want to try and correct as early as possible. So support for the teachers, materials in the classrooms, making sure that the system is enabling to the learners. Now, we have to also bear in mind that some children are not learning because they are not showing up at school. They're not attending often enough. They're not getting the nutrition they need. And so a part of the plan that the PNP has includes support for transportation, We don't want a parent to be in a position where they're deciding, well, can't go today, can't go tomorrow because I only have the money for transportation, or I only have the money for lunch. So every child will have access to a hot meal. At the moment, our thinking is lunch, but depending on resources, we will expand that to other areas. So every child has access to lunch. We have passed the time when a parent should be, in this day and age, be making a decision not to send a child to school because she doesn't have the lunch money. That time come for that to end. So lunch provided at school and transportation support. So if we solve the issue of getting to school and getting lunch while they're at school, then we can focus our attention now on what happens in school. So we will get you there, we will make sure you're fed while you're there, and we'll make sure that teachers have the tools to practice. And so based on those things, we're then in a position to say, well, you should be reading at grade level by grade 3. And if not, we're going to then provide the support to make sure you don't just go through the system to grade 6. Final point here is that we have to look again, Dre, on how we're assessing and what we're using assessments for. The best systems in the world, the assessments are not national news. It's not, the equivalent of our PEP is not something that, makes the front page of the paper and stresses out the family and stresses out the children. And so we have to look at what we're doing with assessment, PEP, but also the assessments at the other levels of the system. They are supposed to help us to better support assessment for learning, assessment to allow us to help the child to learn, not assessment of learning, which is just to check what the child is learning. We want to be in a position, we want the system to be in a position to use assessments differently. So all of those things together make for a more friendly, a more inviting space where children actually want to go to school, where the teachers too are excited about school, and the children are learning. And if they are not learning, we give them the support that they need, because at the end of the day, it is the children of the least able, the children from the poorest households, children from communities like where I am from and the constituency I represent, who are in the majority and not learning at the appropriate grade level for their age. So that is something we want to end now, starting early and making sure that we do not have another generation which goes through the system. But I'm saying going like Johnny Cake and come out like dumpling.
That is certainly that analogy. May I tell the doctor? You said a lot about early childhood, and we totally agree. And based on what you just said, I mean, we keep seeing it, we keep hearing it, what the People's National Party have for early childhood, and we want to thank you for reiterating just that. I mean, it's very sad to know that in this day and age, parents, can't send children to school because they don't really have them, not only the bus fare but the lunch money and them things. Them you just send your picnic go to school, man, and once they're in school, the school will provide them a hot meal. I mean, we should have able to reach this far long ago. So thank you for that initiative being brought forward by the People's National Party. Our teachers, Dr. Russell, a lot of them are leaving Jamaica to seek greener pastures. How does the People's National Party plan to show the teachers that they appreciate them? Because the teachers, they nurture. I mean, they're not only there to teach, but they nurture your kids. Even in the basic school, primary school, you send your children to these institutions and you gone to work. I mean, it's the teachers that nurture them, look after them, take care of them, like act like the parent for those children. And a lot of them don't feel appreciated. And many of them are leaving Jamaica, especially under this administration. What can you say for sure the People's National Party will put in place to retain our teachers so that they can remain in Jamaica and continue the work that they're doing for our students?
Yeah, thank you. The evidence is clear when it comes to teachers. If the most effective intervention to improve learning is a good teacher, right? A good, passionate, committed teacher makes all the difference. And so we thank everybody who remains in the classrooms. Last year, based on the estimates, somewhere in the order of 1,500 teachers left the system, right? And part of the challenge with the system right now is that we are not in a position to say who is leaving when. We're not able to say what subject areas. So it's at best chaotic. It doesn't give the ministry doesn't have full sight of what is happening until after it has happened. So you're not in a position, the ministry is not in a position right now to forward plan, to know that, okay, we're losing 15, 20 science teachers, we're losing 60, 70 special education teachers or math teachers, and then can find others to come in and replace them in a timely way. All of this happens after the fact, which is why you see in March, in February, schools are still advertising for teachers because, sadly, the schools don't know. For the most part, they don't know with any certainty. So we have to look at that. We have to manage that better than it is being managed now. Now, to your question, teachers want to feel valued. They want to feel respected. The attempt the other day with the Jamaica Teaching Council bill did not reflect that, did not reflect respect for the voice of teachers and the contents of the bill itself. The high costs that teachers will incur to remain certified, to remain licensed, the multiple demands that are being put on teachers for continuous professional development and so on. All of these things would turn teachers off and actually want to push them out of the system rather than retain them. And we want to turn that around. We want to ensure that the process of professionalizing the profession does not serve as a disincentive for teachers to see. When we say we want a teaching council, that teaching council should be focused on the development of teachers. They should feel like they have a friend in that council. So that's one component, an entity that is dedicated to supporting our teachers and their professional growth. Then we're also very clear that we have to make sure the basics of life. A teacher saw a teacher a couple of weeks ago and she said, Dr. Russell, I don't think I can continue. And she said, I don't remember the number of years, but 20 odd years she has been in the system. She's now a principal, but now it's time for her to move on. Right? The issues were around housing, around support for her children who are now at tertiary level. And she just feels like she needs to move on in order to carry this heavier economic burden which she faced. We are clear that support through NHT, special provisions through the NHT, both in terms of the NHT allocation and the rates that are charged, the mortgage rates, is one way to ensure that teachers would want to stay. So that's one part, an additional part of our package, the support for access to housing. The second is around concessions for motor vehicles and setting it up in a way that a teacher who has served 5 years gets a level of concession that is different from a teacher who has served 10 and 15 and so on. So the more time you give to the system, the more benefits you gain, because we know, Dre, I don't know if you know this, but it takes about seven to 8 years for a teacher to master the craft of teaching. So if we're losing teachers who have given 8 and 10 years, we're actually losing the teachers that are ready to teach, that have mastered the craft. So you want to reward teachers for staying in the system longer. So the motor vehicle concessions, we used to have what is called peril pay for teachers who choose to come into, deep rural areas, areas that might be volatile and in some cases downright dangerous. They would get an additional incentive to teach in those areas. And what that does is that it allows our the children in these communities to also benefit from the best teachers that are available. That was removed. We want to return that because that's, again, an incentive to make sure we have good teachers in some of these difficult areas. And then another component is just the basic supports, what we call tools of trade. The tools of trade, devices, access to the internet, these should be provided to teachers so that teachers do not feel that they have to be out of pocket to cover the costs for these things that are essential for them to carry on in their profession, right? So we think those things, plus having a strong, constant relationship with the teachers and their unions, making sure that they don't feel as if we're imposing on them, but they're part of the conversation, they're part of the process. We think that this will make a big difference in terms of teachers' willingness to remain in the system. Our history has shown, certainly in my constituency, the JLP locked down Money College in the 1980s, and the PNP reopened it, right? The teachers, colleges, and the institutions preparing teachers, they are also critical, and a lot of them long for meaningful investments that will help them to better prepare, because they can. We prepare, we train some of the best teachers in the world, which is why the demand is such on the system. Now, we need to have a stronger partnership with these institutions. And again, that's a part of how we see a PNP administration dealing with the issues surrounding teachers.
Very well said, Doctor. Very well said. Another thing I want you to talk about, Dr. Russell, is for teachers who are there in the system for a number of years, how would the People's National Party engage them to sharpen up their skills, so to speak? Like many of them, they go to college, yes, and they leave college with the degree, and many would like to upgrade themselves, get the doctorate, and move up the ladder and stuff. Because I can tell you firsthand, my past alma mater, this platform, the Drebrian show on TikTok, we raise funds, and we get tablets and stuff like that, and I take them to the primary school, and my teachers from way back when, even though they were grateful, but certain key aspects of the iPad, they don't know how to maneuver it. And how does the People's National Party plan to assist teachers who are in the system for a long period of time? Because I can tell you have a lot of persons, who leave their teachers at primary schools and high schools and 20 odd years, and they are still in that very same classroom, and we want to upgrade them. And how the PNP plan to reskill them and train them so that they can move up. And we are living in a technological age now where our teachers need to move away from the blackboard and all of that and use the gadgets, so to speak. How do you plan with the People's National Party to give teachers the opportunity to just sharpen up their skills when the People's National Party form the next government?
Yeah, thank you for that. We're happy that teachers remain in those classrooms, right?
Yes.
But you're right. It's a critical point. I made mention earlier on of the continuous professional development, and there are some programs in place at the moment. What we want to do is to ensure that you're not. And at the moment, there was a discussion a couple of weeks ago about the Teaching Council bill, because a major emphasis of that is on the ongoing professional development of teachers. And that is critical. It's a non-negotiable. What we are suggesting, though, is that those programs, we intend to put in place a comprehensive program of support, a clear framework for the development of teachers and the kinds of ongoing development programs which they must access. Those programs should be available, readily available. Some will be, I guess the majority will be online, but some will be face-to-face. It's readily available, but also should be at limited or no cost to teachers. right? And we see now, if you scan some of the programs that are advertised, they come at a significant cost to the teachers. And the teachers have to figure out which ones they do, and in some cases, how they do it. So we want to remove that. The teacher has a responsibility to ensure that they engage and that they take these professional development opportunities seriously, because as you rightly said, they will then be left behind and certainly will not be able to teach effectively if they're not seeing to their professional growth. So we intend to, even before the teaching council comes on board, if that is delayed, make sure that teachers have ready access to programs at no cost. And that is linked to my earlier point about the devices for their work, the tools of trade, the devices, access to the internet, and so on, because they go together. Now, one of the things that we also have to be mindful of, and you talked about technology, but I was in South Manchester on Sunday, and the next member of parliament, Peter Bunting, was joking about having to find specific spots where he can get access to the internet. And it's the same in so many rural communities. In my constituency, once you leave the main, sometimes you're even in the heart of Claremont and you're not getting. So we have to look at that at a national level, what's happening with connectivity, because that's directly related to what the teachers can do in terms of their professional development, but also directly related to how we can use technology in schools and, of course, at home, right? So these things are connected, and we have to solve that issue at a national level as well. But the basic thing here is making sure teachers have ready access and at no cost. What the evidence suggests, and this is something that I know some principals are practicing, is that the professional development work, even if done individually, it becomes more meaningful if there is a support base at school where teachers get to work together, support each other. So some of it goes back to the good old staff meetings, but staff development exercises as well. So the resources need to be provided to schools so that, yes, you access something online individually, of course, but then you also take that into context at school as a group of peers who are acting, who are working on the same issue. So that's the vision from our side, and we want to make sure, as I said earlier on, that the council comes into place, because the council is what is going to ensure that these professional development activities count towards the ongoing licensing and certification of teachers.
Thank you for that, Dr. Russell. And final question from me before I open the phone lines and take some questions from Jamaica. Dr. Russell, for the youngster who is out there, I mean, they've been to school, they've been through the system, they did their very best, they didn't squander their parent money, they get the CXCs, but after accumulated such and all of that good stuff, the parent does not have it for them to continue their education. And so you see they have to go into the world of work. And nothing wrong with that. But how does the People's National Party plan to break that generational curse where, I mean, you go to school, you learn, you get the CXCs, but you just don't have it to go to college? Speak to that young girl, that young boy who, I mean, they don't know where else to turn. What plan does the People's National Party have for those persons, or that one individual who could break that generational curse and try to go to college to further their education? Any plans for those individuals, Dr. Russell?
And nothing breaks generational curse of poverty as education. And nobody, certainly I am an example of that. When I started going to university, then just about all my siblings after me, and I'm from a large family, went on to university. And it's the same in most families. When one gets in and gets that degree or starts to study at tertiary level, it tends to have ripple effect on the other members of the family. So I think you were also saying, Dre, that when those of us who listen to Buju Banton when him say, when mama spend her last and send you go class. And we never play. We did our part. The PNP, our position is that every household where there is a student, a child who was matriculated, who has the qualifications to go on to tertiary education, every household should get one scholarship for one child to complete that tertiary education. That, I think, will break that intergenerational curse, as you call it. Because if you are able to go on to college, get a degree, then you're able to also turn around and help. You're a model for the others, but you're also able to earn in a different bracket, right? Where you can then support your family. So the way this works is that all the costs, all the tuition related costs for someone who finishes high school, has the subjects, gets into a tertiary institution, will be covered by the government under a PNP administration. So this is what we refer to as 1 degree per household. So one child from every household will be eligible to access that scholarship. We think that is revolutionary, but you also may recall this is something we were doing in the 1970s under the Michael Manley administration, because we believe that with that investment in a tertiary education, it changes the life not only of the individual but of the entire family, and that's why we want to make that investment. It is critical to how we go forward as a country.
Trust me, it surely is. That initiative is one of the hallmark that I'm sure a lot of young persons will be giving their support this time around to the People's National Party, and we want to thank the party for that initiative. For
And
those persons,
before
yes,
you go
go
on,
ahead.
and it's closely related to the question of tertiary